Frankly, it's not that we didn't want to. Even the letter writing only started in recent years. Mary Lee asked, but why are you suddenly telling me all this? Charles Lee looked intently at Mary Lee. I just want to tell you, if one day our family faces any unforeseen circumstances, go to the southern Spring Kingdom and seek refuge with your aunt. You must safeguard this Yangji jade pendant carefully. Mary Lee suddenly tensed, seeing her father wasn't joking. Father, don't scare me. What unforeseen circumstances could our family face? You must be hiding something from me. Tell me, please. She grasped his hand, acting coquettishly. Father, my dear father, just tell your daughter. Charles Lee, his arm being shaken by her, initially reluctant to speak, finally relented. All right, I can only say that there's great turmoil in the court this time. No one knows what the emperor is thinking. To be blunt, I'm just taking precautions. Don't worry too much. You're my precious daughter. As long as I'm here, I won't let you suffer. Father, Mary Lee called out, touched. Right, I heard from Hannah Stone that you've been thinking about going out lately. Have you met someone you fancy? Charles Lee changed the subject. Mary Lee's cheeks flushed. Avoiding her father's probing gaze, she said, no such thing. Don't listen to Hannah Stone's nonsense. I said I wouldn't marry, and I won't. Look at you, at it again. Charles Lee feigned exasperation. Mary, when will you ever learn? I'm your daughter, don't you know me? Mary Lee stroked her father's beard. All right, father, tell me about your birthday celebration. Hashtag chapter 13 A true reunion. The birthday feast is almost ready, you just need to make a grand appearance. Charles Lee's heart ached as he looked at his daughter. Mary, I want you to always live a joyful life. Whatever hardships lie ahead, they won't be able to trouble my clever girl. Mary Lee patted her chest. Father, don't you worry, who is your daughter? The young mistress of the Marquis residence, skilled in both literary and martial arts. I'm not boasting, but if 4 or 5 men stood before me right now, I wouldn't necessarily lose. Bragging again, aren't you? Charles Lee said. I don't believe you. Who's bragging? Mary Lee retorted. Every time I sneak out and cause trouble, have you ever seen me come home injured? She challenged him. Pretty impressive, right? That's exactly why I'm worried. You're too impressive. Charles Lee tapped her forehead lightly. How much trouble have you caused since you were little? Let's not even talk about inside the residence, but outside, I can't even count it on 10 fingers. Mary Lee giggled coquettishly. Well, who told you to love your daughter the most? But that's good too. At least I don't have to worry about you being bullied by your in-laws. Charles Lee smiled. By the way, Mary, be honest with me, what kind of husband are you looking for? Well, Mary Lee smacked her lips, rested her chin on her hand, and thought for a moment. If I really have to marry, besides him loving only me, he has to be skilled in both literary and martial arts, indulge all my whims, but also be a bit better than me. Is there anyone among the nobles and royalty that has caught your eye? Charles Lee asked. Mary Lee touched her cheek. I don't know, father, stop asking. She said shyly, all right, father, let's talk about something else. All right. Charles Lee happily cherished this father-daughter moment, wishing time would slow down. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was the Marquis' grand birthday celebration. The residence was decorated with lanterns and flowers, drums and music filled the air, guests arrived with endless congratulations, and the house overflowed with joy. In her chambers, Mary Lee was still sound asleep, the noisy festivities unable to disturb her sweet dreams. Hannah Stone started to worry, thinking that the young mistress should be changing her clothes by now. Standing by the bed, she called, Miss, it's getting late, you should wake up. Oh, Hannah Stone, let me sleep a little longer, Mary Lee mumbled without opening her eyes. Father's birthday celebration isn't for a while yet. Miss, you must get up. If you don't, the master will be angry. Today is the master's birthday, and it's also a good day for you to choose a husband. Don't oversleep. The thought of choosing a husband instantly shattered Mary Lee's pleasant dream. She rubbed her eyes and sat up. What's the rush? It's not like that, Mississippi. I've already taken a look, and there are many guests, some of them quite impressive. Has anyone caught your eye? Caught my eye. Mary Lee immediately regained her usual spirit. I, Mary Lee, have seen plenty of men. I'm not someone who goes weak in the knees at the sight of a man. He. Hannah Stone giggled. Miss, you must put on your best face, make them all drop their jaws. Naturally. Today is Father's grand birthday celebration. I can't disappoint him. All the officials are here, I can't be disrespectful. Mary Lee rose. Someone, help me change. Yes, Mississippi. Two maids entered and began to dress the young lady in a vibrant silk gown. Hannah Stone then styled Mary's hair, pinning it up with an array of ornaments, transforming her from a fresh-faced maid into a resplendent lady. Mary Lee applied her own makeup, her face radiating even more brightly. When she turned around, the three maids stared, dumbfounded. Miss, you are truly stunning. Hannah Stone gulped. Our young master is a fortunate man. The other two maids covered their mouths, giggling. Stop laughing. Hannah Stone, you deserve a scolding. What young master? I don't like hearing that. Come on, let's go to the floral hall to find father. The master is busy. Why don't we wait a moment in the celestial chamber? Hannah Stone suggested. There are many gifts there, surely there are some for you, Mississippi. Let's go and see. Mary Lee lifted her skirt and took a few steps, nearly stumbling, but regained her balance. Seeing the maids behind her laughing, she retorted, What are you laughing at? Sooner or later, you'll all be married off. On the round table in the celestial chamber, a mountain of gifts, large and small boxes, were piled high. Mary Lee picked up one, examined another, and then her eyes landed on a particular gift box. Oh, I think I've seen this box somewhere before. Hannah Stone, uninterested, replied, These kinds of boxes are everywhere. It's nothing special. Mary Lee picked up the gift box and opened it. Inside lay a string of azure prayer beads. Oh my! How did this get here? She exclaimed. Hannah Stone peered in. Why so surprised, miss? Is this string of prayer beads so precious? Something worth 5,000 liang bought for 50 liang, you tell me if it's precious or not. Mary Lee's mind raced. But how did this string of prayer beads end up at the Marquis residence? Hannah Stone chuckled. He, miss, you're so muddled. These are all birthday gifts for the master. Of course, they were brought here by the gift givers. Mary Lee ignored her, her thoughts consumed by the mystery of the prayer beads owner. Distinguished guests gathered, with places set for Henry Cavill and David Duke. I didn't expect so many people to attend the Marquis birthday celebration, Henry Cavill remarked. If my grandfather weren't unwell, I wouldn't bother coming to offer congratulations. Young master, I overheard someone say that the reason so many people are here today, David Duke whispered in his master's ear, is ostensibly to celebrate the Marquis birthday, but secretly to choose a husband for his daughter. Henry Cavill chuckled. Seeing the Marquis greeting the guests, he stepped forward. Marquis, happy birthday. I've come to offer my congratulations. And you are? Charles Lee looked at the young man before him, sensing a noble air and imposing presence. Henry Cavill smiled. I am the grandson of the old General Michael Strong. My grandfather suddenly fell ill, so I've come in his stead to convey his respects. I wish the Marquis many happy returns, and may each year be as blessed as this one. You're too kind, you're too kind. Many thanks. Such a joyous occasion today, we must have a few drinks. Ha ha ha. Charles Lee inwardly felt this young man was truly not bad, but didn't want to be too abrupt, so he refrained from asking. Today, guests were coming and going in great numbers. Charles Lee, after leading Henry Cavill into the residence, didn't engage in much conversation. After settling him in, he went to receive other guests. Henry Cavill, having no acquaintances, took David Duke for a stroll in the garden. Amidst the blooming flowers in the garden, Henry Cavill, while enjoying the beautiful scenery, suddenly froze. A female voice rang out from behind, "Who are you?" Henry Cavill turned around to see a young woman in the prime of her youth, skillfully made up, exuding an air of nobility, especially her eyes, brimming with vitality. David Duke also looked at the woman. "Master, she seems to be." "Henry Cavill, it really is you." Mary Lee's eyes widened. "Tell me, why have you come to the Marquis residence? What are you planning?" Henry Cavill didn't answer immediately, but sized Mary Lee up from head to toe, then suddenly pointed at her and said, "Indeed. You truly are a fraud." David Duke, still not understanding the situation, asked, "Master, what are you talking about?" "David Duke, do you remember Victor Lee? And also the young master who seized the opportunity to escape, and that young master's younger sister? All three of these people are this young lady before our eyes." Henry Cavill's expression was complex. "Am I right, Miss Lee?" Mary Lee didn't flinch, bravely meeting his gaze. "All right, you're not completely stupid." Being exposed by him, she not only didn't feel embarrassed, but felt a rare sense of relief. Even she herself was surprised. This feeling was truly strange. This woman, really. Henry Cavill originally intended to get angry, but held back, saying, "Fine, a true man doesn't squabble with a woman. Out of respect for the Marquis, I'll forgive you." "I haven't forgiven you yet." Mary Lee retorted sulkily, then extended her right hand, saying, "Where's my fragrant pouch? Return it to me at once. That fragrant pouch really belongs to you." Henry Cavill looked at her slender fingers. "The embroidery is quite good." Mary Lee chuckled softly, saying, "You're praising the wrong person. This fragrant pouch was embroidered by my maidservant, Hannah Stone. This young lady doesn't know how to do such trifling things." She saw Hannah Stone's dazed expression and reproached, "Hannah Stone, have you never seen a man before?" Chapter 14, Who Said I'm Not Your Equal? Hannah Stone, already completely captivated by Henry Cavill, swallowed hard and said, "Miss, this nobleman is truly handsome. If he could become our master, my foot." Mary Lee clapped her hand over Hannah Stone's mouth. "If you say one more word, believe me or not, I'll lock you in the woodshed." She was truly angry. Hannah Stone, knowing she had spoken out of turn, hastily nodded, muffled sounds escaping her lips. Mary Lee then released her, looked at Henry Cavill, and asked, "What are you doing at our house? What are you plotting? I said we wouldn't meet again. You think this young master wanted to come?" Henry Cavill retorted, "Not to be outdone, if it weren't for my grandfather's poor health, I wouldn't have come in his stead to offer birthday congratulations. I hear your father is choosing a husband for you." His expression was somewhat mocking, revealing a hint of disbelief. In Mary Lee's eyes, it seemed as if he was looking down on her. Recalling their previous intimacy in the room at the Orchid Pavilion, she couldn't help but blush. "Yes, I'm choosing a husband, but what does that have to do with you? You should still please return. This young lady doesn't need your pity and mockery." A sudden pang of sadness struck her heart. Observing her proud, rebellious demeanor, Henry Cavill's eyes held a glint of admiration. She was truly a straightforward, quick-witted, and mischievous young woman, quite unlike ordinary ladies. Upon closer inspection, her features were refined, delicate eyebrows, crimson lips, and a pair of sparkling bright eyes, though, admittedly, they were currently glaring at him. "Hey, Henry Cavill, have you stared enough?" Mary Lee felt uncomfortable under his intense gaze. "What are you still standing there gawking at? Go back." Hannah Stone, astonished by her mistress's reaction, said, "Miss, he is an esteemed guest invited by the master. You cannot simply dismiss him like this." "Me? Humph. I am the young mistress of the Marquis residence. I have the authority to keep or dismiss anyone. Hannah Stone, help me see this guest out." Mary Lee herself didn't understand why she was acting this way, perhaps it was due to a sudden feeling of awkwardness. "Miss Hannah Stone is absolutely right. I am a guest invited by your father. Out of respect for him, as for you." Henry Cavill deliberately glanced at her. "You're not intimidating." He rather enjoyed their verbal sparring, it seemed to bring him a strange sense of delight. "You. Henry Cavill, who are you? This young mistress doesn't even consider you worth a glance." Mary Lee gave a self-satisfied smile. "Even if every man in the city were dead, I still wouldn't give you a second thought." The words left her mouth before she realized their impropriety, but it was like spilled water, impossible to retrieve. "Miss, that's wrong. What are you saying?" Hannah Stone was anxious, nearly blushing. She addressed Henry Cavill, "Young master, please forgive her. Our mistress isn't usually like this. Perhaps the heat is getting to her today." Mary Lee wanted to bite her tongue. Seeing Henry Cavill's half-smile, she said angrily, "Don't think you can be arrogant just because you're my father's guest. Let me tell you, among all these gifts, I hate this string of beads the most." She just wanted to provoke him. His calmness was infuriating. Looking at her vibrant face, Henry Cavill felt his own mood lighten considerably. Mary Lee suddenly held up the string of beads. "I knew there was something fishy going on. Bringing such a mediocre gift, he truly doesn't respect my father." David Duke couldn't help but speak up, "Miss, please look closely. This is not the string of beads our young master bought for 50 taels of silver." "What?" Mary Lee looked at the beads in her hand. "Impossible, he wouldn't be that generous." "Believe it or not," Henry Cavill said, "a fine horse deserves a fine saddle. The Marquis holds a noble position and is a close friend of my grandfather before he retired. How could I possibly gift a mere 50-tael string of beads? Henry Cavill, you dare call my father a horse?" Mary Lee seized the opportunity to pick a fight. "If I don't teach you a lesson today, I'm not Mary Lee." She looked around for something she could use as a weapon. "Miss, you've gone mad. He's a guest, you can't just teach him a lesson." Hannah Stone was flustered and worried. Her mistress wasn't usually like this. Why was she acting so haughty and arrogant upon meeting such a handsome young man? "Guest or not, I'm in a foul mood today. Whoever crosses my path is simply unlucky. Mary Lee, you'll regret this." Henry Cavill wasn't truly angry. He thought another little contest with her wouldn't be so bad. Seeing David Duke's apparent agreement, he became even more resolute. "How do you intend to teach me a lesson?" He was struggling to suppress a smile. Mary Lee said to Hannah Stone, quickly, "Bring my sword here." "No, I won't go. I dare not without the master's order." Hannah Stone had her own worries. So many talented young men had arrived today, if the young mistress had any mishap, her own life would be forfeit. "Are you going or not?" Mary Lee wouldn't let it go, continuing to threaten, "Hannah Stone, am I your master or not? Mary Lee, you're a truly terrible young mistress. If you want to fight, do it quickly. Later, when the banquet begins, I won't entertain you anymore." Seeing the young mistress's displeasure, Hannah Stone conceded, "Young mistress, weapons are dangerous. If you two want to compete, fine, but how about barehanded?" Mary Lee immediately thought of her embarrassing menstrual period, blushing as she said, "Fine, barehanded it is. I don't believe this evil. I've defeated so many men, I'll definitely defeat you. Mary Lee, you can't beat me. You should just admit defeat. Henry Cavill said. Admit defeat? Mary Lee gritted her teeth. Henry Cavill, who says I'm not your equal? Take this. Young master, do you really want to fight? David Duke thought to himself, this is the third time you two have faced off. I won't admit defeat. I've never even known how to write the word defeat, Mary Lee declared, assuming a fighting stance. Young master, our young mistress is just like this, never admitting defeat. She always gets back up where she falls. Hannah Stone explained, to tell you the truth, the master wants to hold a martial arts competition to choose a husband for her today. A martial arts competition to choose a husband? Mary Lee's heart pounded. Father really wants to do this? What? Didn't you know, young mistress? Hannah Stone countered. Henry Cavill remained calm. So, it seems we must compete. What? Am I not good enough for you? Mary Lee blurted out in a fluster, I'm the young mistress of the Marquis residence. I can have any man I want. I wouldn't want someone I've already defeated. Spirited. Henry Cavill clapped his hands in appreciation, but how do you know you'll win? It's good to be competitive, but too much ambition can be detrimental. Right, exactly. A woman's virtue lies in her lack of talent, isn't that right, young master? David Duke chimed in. If you don't speak, no one will think you're mute. Mary Lee repeated the same sentence to the same person, showing just how competitive she was. Hannah Stone pondered, then suddenly said, Young master, young mistress, it's getting late. If you want to compete, do it quickly. Only then will your hearts be at ease. As they spoke, Henry Cavill suddenly looked down and saw something moving near Mary Lee's feet. He quickly bent down, picked up a broken twig, and flung it with precision. Mary Lee turned around, startled. She saw a large, brightly colored snake on the ground, a broken twig embedded in its 7-inch mark. It was still writhing, in its death throes. She immediately understood. Young mistress, this young master saved you. Hannah Stone finally regained her composure. He's your lifesaver. Her eyebrows lifted with joy, as if she had seen something auspicious. Don't talk nonsense, Mary Lee stubbornly insisted. If anything, I'm his lifesaver. Henry Cavill smiled, saying, Young lady, you have quite the memory, but I've already forgotten about it. He stepped closer, whispering teasingly in her ear, You wouldn't want everyone to know you've been to a brothel, would you? You. Mary Lee couldn't hold back, striking out with her palm, Henry Cavill, you did that on purpose, didn't you? Others might fear you, but I don't. If you have the guts, let's have a match. Henry Cavill retreated 2 steps, shaking his head. I'm afraid if you compete with me now, you'll be too exhausted to win against another man later. Then you'll regret it. His eyes were full of amusement. No woman had ever made him lower his guard like this, so carefree and untroubled. He hadn't experienced this kind of joy from the heart in a long time. Mary Lee's affairs are none of your business, outsider. Take this. Mary Lee wanted to use all her strength, as long as she could defeat him. Henry Cavill dodged the attack but didn't retaliate, continuously retreating as he said, Miss Lee, you should think carefully. What will happen if you lose? Indeed, Mississippi. If this gentleman wins, he can marry you. Hannah Stone said, the Marquis has declared that whoever defeats you can marry the only daughter of the Marquis residence. What? Mary Lee was utterly astonished. What's wrong with father? He's so stubborn. She felt trapped, unable to win or lose. Sir, why not take a small loss and win her over, saving others from trouble? David Duke said sarcastically. David Duke, don't talk nonsense. Henry Cavill's heart suddenly stirred as he looked at Mary Lee's charming face, 100 emotions welling up. Humph, I won't lose to you. Mary Lee feigned indifference. I must defeat you today. I've never truly lost to anyone. Just as they were about to fight, Victor Lee arrived. Seeing the situation, he hurriedly intervened, My lady, please stop fighting. The martial arts competition to choose a husband is about to begin in the front courtyard. If you two want to fight, go to the platform. Ah. There's a martial arts competition too. Mary Lee's raised hand froze mid-air. Victor White, I don't like any of these men. Can I skip the fight? This wasn't the first time she'd encountered this situation. She always won decisively, deterring men from having any designs on her. No, the Marquis has gone to great lengths to invite these gentlemen and wealthy families. You must give him face and play your part, Mississippi. Victor Lee said, the main character today is Miss Lee of the Marquis residence. Chapter 15, Calamity Strikes, Family and Fortune Lost, Play My Part. Mary Lee was somewhat angry, a shadow of gloom covering her beautiful face. Haven't I, Mary Lee, acted enough? I'm probably already the laughingstock of the whole town. Thinking of her past experiences, she felt deeply frustrated. Miss, you can't say that. Victor Lee said. Patiently, I've watched you grow up, and I know your capabilities. But there are still many good men in this world, and one of them will surely be your future husband. Even if not for yourself, you should consider the Marquis, who has raised you with great effort. About this, mentioning her father, a twinge of unease pricked Mary Lee's heart, and she lowered her head. Victor Lee continued to persuade her, the old master may appear imposing outside, but within the residence, everyone knows you, miss, are his lifeblood. Only when you are settled will he have peace of mind and good health. Indeed, Mississippi, forgive my boldness, but the old master has been more than good to you, practically obeying your every whim. You cannot continue to wound his heart. Hannah Stone, understanding the situation, added her own counsel. Mary Lee remained utterly silent, standing as if in a daze. For a fleeting moment, Henry Cavill felt compelled to help her, but then reconsidered. His own safety was precarious, how could he possibly assist another? Reluctantly, he lowered his gaze. Hannah Stone, stealing a glance at Henry Cavill, remarked, in my humble opinion, this young master seems quite suitable. Judging by Mrs. Tone, you must have met him outside. Mary Lee's face flushed involuntarily. Observing this, Hannah Stone declared, Miss, this might be your chance. Mary Lee made a gesture as if to strike her. Victor Lee, finally taking a proper look at Henry Cavill, said with a smile, Young master, may I inquire about your family background? Are you already married? If you don't find it objectionable, please come to the dueling platform in the front courtyard. If you can defeat our young miss, the old master has declared that everything belonging to the Marquis residence can serve as her dowry. Mary Lee, impatient, retorted, What? Humph, the one who can defeat me has likely yet to be born. Henry Cavill, out of habit, countered, such arrogance. This young master naturally wouldn't lose to a woman. But he immediately tilted his head, adding, Forget it. Since you clearly dislike me, I can't be bothered to fight on any dueling platform. His words stirred a surge of resentment within Mary Lee, and she blurted out, Victor White, show him out. With that, she turned and walked away without a backward glance, her back rigid, her steps hurried. Victor Lee and Hannah Stone hastened after their mistress, leaving Henry Cavill and his servant to watch her figure recede into the distance. David Duke hesitated for a moment, then looked into his master's eyes and said, Master, forgive my presumption, but have you perhaps taken a liking to Miss Lee? Henry Cavill, his expression resigned, replied, David Duke, do you think I can currently devote myself entirely to protecting a woman? They wouldn't leave her alone. He looked up at the sky. Perhaps I am destined to be alone in this life. No, master, you deserve a woman of your own, and this woman must be the most suitable for you. David Duke spoke with an unusual seriousness and gravity. She can protect herself and is sufficiently resilient and courageous. Master, David Duke is not blind, I see and understand. Henry Cavill sighed softly. All right, David Duke, let's return. He resolved to close off his heart. Let's just consider this a pleasant encounter. On the dueling platform, Mary Lee was unmatched in her prowess, every man yielding to her skill. Her gaze pierced through the crowd, watching Henry Cavill depart, his figure gradually disappearing at the mansion gates. A sudden, sharp pain stabbed at her heart, nearly stealing her breath. A month later, amidst courtly turmoil, disaster struck the Marquis residence. Charles Lee, sleepless night after night, his ears filled with clamor, the strings of his heart snapping, rushed through the darkness to his daughter's chambers, heedless of all else. Who's there? Mary Lee sat up in the darkness, carefully discerning the unusual sound outside. Mary, it's me. Charles Lee tossed a bundle onto the bed. Get up quickly, it'll be too late if you delay. Mary Lee, dressed in her gray cloth clothing, asked, Father, what's happening outside? What's going on? Don't ask, just escape through the back door quickly. No, go up to the roof, it's faster that way. Charles Lee spoke urgently. The Emperor won't tolerate our Lee family any longer, he's made his move. Get out of here, the faster the better. Mary Lee ran to her father and said, No, I won't go. You're my father, this is my home, where else can I go? She fought back tears. Charles Lee, his eyes welling up, said, No, I can die, but you must live. Quickly, obey me, take this bundle and go to the southern Spring Kingdom to find your aunt. If she sees the Yangji jade pendant, she'll take you in. Or show her your tattoo, it's the mark of our Lee family. All right, don't hesitate any longer, go. No, I won't go, I can't go, I want to live and die with you. Mary Lee realized with a jolt that this parting might be forever. I belong to the Marquis residence, in life and death, I'll be with everyone. Don't be foolish. Charles Lee pushed her outwards. This time, the Marquis residence can hardly escape this calamity. You are my hope, and the hope of the Marquis residence. You must survive. I'll hold them back, you run, go as far as you can. He spoke with determination. I've always listened to you, this time, consider it my plea. Obey me, just this once. No, father, I'll fight them to the death. Mary Lee turned to grab her sword. I won't be a coward. No, Mary, you can't. Charles Lee stopped her. Only if you live can I rest in peace. No, father, you won't die, the Lee family won't perish. Tears finally streamed down, blurring Mary's vision. I want to see the Emperor. Charles Lee suddenly knelt down. Mary, I'm kneeling before you, they're about to break in, you can't hesitate any longer. Remember, the one who destroyed our family is the Emperor of the Western Shu Kingdom. No matter how difficult and dangerous it is, you must live. You must keep this life to avenge the Lee family. Go. Go. Father. Mary Lee cried out, throwing herself into his arms. I'll go, I'll obey you. Hoo. She sobbed loudly. Charles Lee embraced his daughter one last time, then reluctantly pushed her away. Go, you must live well. His heart was breaking, but he had no choice. Mary, quickly, go by the roof. Mary Lee wiped her tears and kowtowed 3 times forcefully. Unfilial daughter, farewell, father. Go. Charles Lee urged again. Hearing the commotion growing louder and closer, Mary Lee slung the bundle onto her back, a long sword in her hand. She took one last look at her father, opened the door, and resolutely leaped onto the roof. Only then did she see the Marquis residence surrounded by numerous imperial soldiers, torches painting the sky red. Forgive me, father, forgive me, Lee family, forgive me, I will avenge you. Mary Lee murmured, then decisively left the rooftop. Someone's escaping on the roof. A voice shouted from below. Quickly, chase after her. Surrounding her was utter blackness, stars sparsely scattered, Mary Lee's heart a tempestuous sea. Behind her, the chaotic sounds of footsteps arose, she knew the moment of conflict had arrived. Employing her lightness skill, she ran with all her might. Capture was not an option, her father had declared her their hope, and hope demanded courageous survival. Tears were futile, from this day forward, her world held no place for them, only vengeance. The Marquis residence was awash in blood. The Emperor's decree, extermination of the entire clan. Charles Lee, despite a desperate defense alongside his family, met a gruesome end beneath the blades of their enemies. His dying hope rested solely on his daughter's escape. Mary Lee ran for her life, the darkness unable to impede her determined steps. The pursuing soldiers drew ever closer, but she was prepared for battle. Finally, a group surrounded her. Halt! What is your connection to the Lee residence? One of them demanded. Mary Lee offered no reply, responding instead with her sword. Once, swordplay had been mere sport, casual bouts with men. Now, it was a desperate fight for survival. These men were demons, destroyers of everything the Lee family held dear. Riches and honor meant nothing, only the lost lives mattered. A fierce battle erupted. Mary Lee's eyes blazed crimson as her sword danced, felling several before she seized an opportunity to flee. The pursuit continued relentlessly. Running along the riverbank, Mary Lee's confidence grew, only to be thwarted by the water's edge. As she hesitated, her pursuers closed in. This wench is formidable, one of them roared. Surrender and die. Even in death, I won't be yours. I will never surrender. The thought of her father and family, likely slain, fueled her rage. Tell that dog of an emperor, I, Mary Lee, will avenge the Marquis residence. A sharp-tongued girl, indeed. Brothers, attack, a voice commanded. Mary Lee plunged into another desperate struggle. Outnumbered and outmatched, she gradually weakened. Seeing no escape, she looked to the heavens and cried out, Father! Hannah Stone! Victor White! I will not yield! Tears welled in her eyes as she faced her enemies. You will not defeat me! With that, Mary Lee closed her eyes and leaped into the deep, dark river. The water erupted, swallowing her form instantly, leaving no trace. The pursuers on the bank exchanged glances. The river's current was swift, no one surfaced. After a time, the two leaders conferred, and one finally ordered, let's go. She's taken her own life. We return to the Marquis residence to report. Yes, sir. The cry echoed along the river. The river's surface grew calm, reflecting the lone crescent moon hanging in the sky, its shimmering image a mournful, haunting sight. Hashtag Chapter 16, A Path of Destiny unfolds within the realm of the Eastern Kingdom lay a vast, tranquil expanse of water where the river flowed serenely. The weather was fair as Philip Flair, accompanied by several retainers, journeyed along this route in his carriage. It was not the official road, but the quickest path back to the imperial palace. Two young eunuchs, one on the left and one on the right, followed the carriage, identically dressed, differing only in height. Luke Shaw, where are we? Philip Flair parted the curtain, addressing the lanky eunuch, I'm terribly parched. Luke Shaw, gazing ahead, respectfully replied, Master, we are still quite far from the imperial palace. Lai Van, the shorter eunuch, shook the water pouch at his hip, disappointedly saying, Master, there's no water left. I wonder if the others have any. He looked back, Tom Hiddleston, Sam Smith, do either of you have any water left? Both Tom Hiddleston and Sam Smith, upon hearing this, shook their heads, indicating their water pouches were empty. Philip Flair pursed his lips, then let's stop. Everyone can drink some water before we continue. His Majesty hasn't urged our return to the palace yet. Yes, master, the four young eunuchs bowed their heads respectfully. Spotting some large trees a short distance away, Luke Shaw halted the carriage. Master, please rest in the shade of those trees. We'll fetch some water. The river has just risen, it should be clean. Though short in stature, Lai Van moved with surprising agility. He took a water pouch and hurried to the reed-lined riverbank. Just as he knelt down and took 2 refreshing gulps, he saw a body floating on the surface. He jumped back in fright. Mother. Who is that? A person or a ghost? He collapsed onto the ground, terrified, yelling, "Come quickly. There's someone floating in the river." His voice was filled with horror. Hearing the commotion, Philip Flair quickly rose from his seat of dried leaves. "Come on, let's go see what's happened." Luke Shaw, with his long legs, reached the riverbank first. "Lai Van, what's all the yelling about? What's so startling?" He looked out at the river and saw the situation. "Everyone, come quickly. There really is someone in the water. I don't know if they're alive or dead." Philip Flair, looking at the figure in the water, asked, "Can any of you swim?" All 4 shook their heads. Philip Flair said in frustration, "Useless lot. Well, help me take off my robe." "Don't go, master. Let's just pretend we didn't see anything." Tom Hiddleston, somewhat timidly, said with a pout, "What if it's a dead person? We'll bring bad luck upon ourselves. Go play somewhere else. And don't ever tell anyone you served under me, Philip Flair. Don't tarnish my reputation." With that, Philip Flair removed his shoes and socks, and without taking off his robe, waded into the water, striving to reach the floating figure. The 4 young eunuchs watched from the bank, not daring to speak, fearful of what might happen. Philip Flair, with considerable effort, dragged the person to the shore, where the 4 eunuchs joined forces to pull them onto the bank. "Master, come out of the water." Luke Shaw and Lai Van pulled Philip Flair from the river. Philip Flair, still dripping wet, touched the water on the person's face. Well. Can this young lady be saved?" "Young lady?" Tom Hiddleston looked closely at the soaked figure on the ground. "Mother. It really is a woman. Master, you've struck gold today." Sam Smith, the boldest of the 4, checked for a pulse, then exclaimed joyfully, "Master, she's breathing. She's alive. Oh, what luck." He gently patted the unconscious woman's cheek. "Hey, miss. Hey, wake up." Philip Flair gasped, "Move aside, let me see." He directed Luke Shaw and Lil Van, "Both of you, lift her up and place her on my back. We need to get the water out of her lungs, or she'll die." "Yes, sir." Luke Shaw swiftly obeyed. Lil Van was equally quick, and together they hoisted the woman onto Philip Flair's back, each supporting one side. Philip Flair clearly possessed some skill. His movements, neither too gentle nor too forceful, rose and fell rhythmically, like traversing a mountain path. Initially, the unconscious woman showed no response, but gradually, water began to trickle from her mouth. "Ah, there's hope, there's hope!" Sam Smith exclaimed joyfully. "Master, you've worked hard." Philip Flair continued the vigorous shaking. The young woman vomited more water, even bile, before he finally set her down. Miss. Philip Flair called twice, then looked at his 4 useless subordinates. "Step aside, don't block the wind. She needs to breathe." Soon enough, Mary Lee finally regained consciousness, murmuring, "Father." Philip Flair, watching her, was deeply moved when he heard her call him father. Well, since I was born, no one has ever called me that." "Don't celebrate too soon, master." "She's calling for her own father," Tom Hiddleston interjected. "Look, she's fainted. Again." Sure enough, the young woman had lost consciousness again, leaving the 5 men at a loss. Philip Flair pondered for a moment. Perhaps she was in the water too long. "It's all right, we'll just wait a bit longer. With the sunlight on her, she won't catch a chill. Luke Shaw and the others waited patiently. Indeed, after a stick of incense had burned, Mary Lee awoke again, her voice hoarse. Where am I? It felt as though she had just journeyed down a very, very long road. Philip Flair, now changed into clean, neat clothes, smiled. Miss, we saved you. Do you remember how you fell into the water? Tom Hiddleston suddenly spoke. Master, could she be an assassin from some foreign land? Have you ever seen an assassin drown? Philip Flair retorted. I feel a connection with her. He felt immense joy at having saved a life. Sharp-eyed Sam Smith noticed a cord around her neck and pulled it out to examine it. Whoa! Look, everyone, this is a treasure. In his hand was the jade pendant depicting intertwined dragons and phoenixes. A young G. The jade pendant, Philip Flair, with his vast knowledge, declared. It's clearly top quality. Could someone have tried to rob her and failed? If so, this young woman must be someone of importance. So, what do we do now? Luke Shaw looked up. Master, we can't just leave her here. Lil Van suggested, let's ask her. He then addressed the woman, Miss, who are you? Where are you from? Who am I? Mary Lee had completely lost her memory, her mind a blank slate. Who should I be? That's right, who am I? Why am I here? Am I a celestial fairy descended from the heavens? Philip Flair touched her forehead. This isn't good. I fear she was submerged for too long, and with all the rocks in the river, she must have hit her head. Tom Hiddleston exclaimed in alarm, oh dear, she hasn't become an idiot, has she? He looked around. Master, maybe we should just leave her here. We still have a journey to make. You heartless scoundrel, looking for a beating, are you? Philip Flair kicked him, paused in thought, then declared, Fate has brought us together, and she called me father. From this day forward, she is my adopted daughter. Luke Shaw rejoiced, saying, That's wonderful, Master. Congratulations on gaining an adopted daughter. Master, now that you have a daughter, shouldn't you give us some celebratory coins? Tom Hiddleston asked with a grin. Tom Hiddleston, oh Tom Hiddleston, your name truly suits you, Philip Flair remarked. You want celebratory coins? Fine, carry her to the carriage and take good care of her when we return to the palace. Tom Hiddleston hesitated, reluctant to carry her alone. Seeing this, Sam Smith offered, I'm strong. I'll carry her. With the help of Luke Shaw and the others, he effortlessly lifted the young woman into the carriage. Soon, the group resumed their journey towards the imperial palace. Mary Lee, eyes wide, lay in the spacious carriage, murmuring, Who am I? Am I a celestial being? Or a reincarnated demon? Hearing her rambling, Philip Flair felt a pang of sympathy. Such a beautiful young woman. It's a shame she's become addled. He looked at her. You'll take my family name. Mary Lee giggled foolishly. Ha, who are you? My father? Philip Flair, overcome with emotion, declared, Yes, that's right. From now on, I am your father. Gazing into her bright eyes, he continued, I have it. From this moment forward, your name shall be Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair. I'm Charlotte Flair. Mary Lee's spirits lifted, and her clothes were almost dry. She sat up and looked at Philip Flair. Father, who are you? Knowing her mind was unclear, Philip Flair wasn't annoyed. He chuckled and said, I'm Philip Flair. Remember, you are Charlotte Flair. I remember. I'm Charlotte Flair, and you're Philip Flair, Mary Lee mumbled. Philip Flair glanced at her, then parted the carriage curtains and announced in a shrill voice, Listen up, everyone. This is my daughter, Charlotte Flair, and she'll be with me from now on. If any of you dare bully her, you'll face my wrath. Master, rest assured. Charlotte Flare is your daughter, and our sister, Sam Smith said. But what about her official status? Philip Flare, already prepared, replied, that's easy. A new group of palace maids just arrived. Charlotte Flare will join them. I'll protect her, and you lot better be on your best behavior. Yes, master, the four replied in unison. They pressed on, finally reaching the imperial palace at the hour of the dog, 7 to 9 p.m. Mary Lee, her strength restored, practically leaped from the carriage. Philip Flare, delighted, observed, this girl, barely recovered and already so lively. She must have been a little monkey in her past life. Mary Lee, seemingly confused, asked, Father, what's a little monkey? Can you eat it? Luke Shaw covered his mouth to stifle a laugh. Seeing this, Philip Flare warned, listen up. If anyone dares laugh at my daughter, Charlotte Flare, I'll disown you. Luke Shaw immediately stopped laughing and said seriously, Master, where will she stay tonight? She can't possibly squeeze in with us. Not that we would mind, hee hee. Hashtag chapter 17, Becoming a Pitiful Palace Maid. Luke Shaw, what are you thinking? Sam Smith said, she's Master's adopted daughter, of course she'll stay in the same room with Master. No, she can't stay in the same room with us. You all go back and rest, I'll take Luke Shaw to Myriad Grace Hall. Philip Flare said. Yes, Master, I'll go with you. Luke Shaw walked to Mary Lee's side. Charlotte Flare, you're so lucky, our master has never taken an adopted daughter before. Philip Flare said with a smile, that's right, who can say Charlotte Flare and I aren't fated? Charlotte Flare, what do you think? Mary Lee obediently mumbled, fate, father, I have a father now. As she spoke, she skipped forward, looking very happy. Philip Flare followed, Charlotte Flare, wait, the palace is vast, be careful not to get lost. Mary Lee seemed not to hear the warning from behind, continuing to walk straight ahead. Fortunately, the palace halls had begun to quiet down for the night, and the number of palace maids and eunuchs had dwindled, so she didn't bump into anyone. Luke Shaw hurried forward to take Mary Lee's arm, saying, Charlotte Flare, you must remember, you can't wander around the forbidden palace as you please, especially at night. We are but lowly servants, everything we do depends on Master's mood, and also, never ever disgrace Master. Mary Lee thought for a moment, then said with a smile, I understand, I mustn't bring shame. She rubbed her face, shameful, I've lost face. Philip Flare followed behind them, still in good spirits, not feeling sleepy at all. Knowing she was a simple-minded girl, Luke Shaw felt more pity than mockery. Kind by nature, he played along, lost face, Charlotte Flare won't lose face. Right? Master's daughter is a good girl. Good girl, I'm a good girl, a good girl. Mary Lee giggled innocently. Myriad Grace Hall was where the palace maids rested, divided into many small rooms, each housing 4 to 8 maids. The higher the rank of the maid, the more spacious their living quarters, and the highest-ranking maid, the head palace maid, enjoyed the privilege of a single room. Emma Watson, having finished giving instructions to the 4 head palace maids, was about to rest when she heard a soft knock on the door. Who is it? It's late, if you have something to say it tomorrow. She yawned, not intending to get up. Philip Flare said from outside the door, it's me, Philip Flare. I just returned to the palace and have some treats for you. With so many people in the palace, he and Emma Watson were quite close and often visited each other. Hearing that it was Philip Flare, Emma Watson adjusted her clothes and went to the door. Upon opening it, she saw 3 people. Oh, quite a group you have here. She immediately noticed Mary Lee. Who is this young lady? She looks unfamiliar. Isn't this why I came to you? Philip Flare said, we have a good relationship, and this young lady will be under your care from now on. Emma, my dear, what do you think? Come in first. Emma Watson let the three of them into the room, then stood in front of Mary Lee, her tone tart. "So, is this the treat you brought me?" "He, how could that be?" Philip Flair chuckled, pulling a box from his chest. "See, do you like it?" Emma Watson, upon seeing him, her still youthful face breaking into a delighted smile despite her age, said, "All right, I'll accept this gift. But tell me more about this young lady. Every time you leave the palace on the Emperor's business, you've never brought back a living soul, let alone a girl." "Emma, this young lady is Master's newly adopted daughter," Luke Shaw quickly explained. "Oh, an adopted daughter?" Emma Watson scrutinized Mary Lee more closely. "Philip Flair, you're quite something. Since when did you develop such a sentimental heart?" Sensing something amiss, she added, "This girl seems a bit unusual." "Indeed, she suffered a head injury." "Well, it's also possible she was a bit simple-minded before." Philip Flair briefly recounted the circumstances of the adoption. "Finally," he said, "you have extensive connections within the palace, and a new batch of palace maids just arrived. So, could you, perhaps, as a favor to me?" Luke Shaw, catching his master's wink, chimed in, "Yes, Emma, you're the most generous person in the palace. Master always remembers you. This gift was personally chosen by him, guaranteed to please you. Master's adopted daughter may be a bit slow, but she's a good person. Master is a bodhisattva reincarnated, and so are you." All right, enough with the flattery," Emma Watson said with a laugh. "The palace does need people, but she's simple-minded. How can I possibly accept her?" "Perhaps her condition is only temporary," Philip Flair suggested. "She might recover after a while." "Charlotte Flair, thank Emma quickly," he urged Mary Lee, regardless of whether she had agreed or not. Mary Lee, still smiling vacantly, suddenly blurted out, Sister, you're so pretty." Luke Shaw couldn't help but snort with laughter. Philip Flair feigned surprise. "Well done, Charlotte Flair. Like father, like daughter. If you want to live peacefully in the palace, you must first learn to sweet-talk." Slightly embarrassed, Emma Watson conceded, "Fine. One more mouth to feed won't make much difference. The Emperor's birthday feast is coming up. I'll find something for her to do." "Excellent. I'll trouble you then." "I, Philip Flair, am most grateful." Philip Flair clasped his hands and bowed to Emma Watson, feigning deep gratitude. "Enough with the formalities. I appreciate the gesture." Emma Watson turned to Luke Shaw. "Luke Shaw, you go on ahead. I have something to discuss with your master." "Yes, Master, Commander. I'll take my leave." Luke Shaw turned to go, but Mary Lee grabbed his hand. "Charlotte Flair, be good. We'll come visit you when we have time." Mary Lee pondered for a moment, then asked, "What's visit?" "It means to chat, to joke, to have fun. Understand?" Luke Shaw explained. "I really must go. I have much to do tomorrow morning. I'll be beaten if I don't finish." "Beaten? What's that?" Mary Lee inquired again. "Charlotte Flair, no more questions. Someone will teach you everything later." After Luke Shaw had left, Philip Flair said, "See if you like this jade bracelet. I brought it back from 1,000 miles away. You won't find anything like it in the palace." "You're very thoughtful," Emma Watson replied. "Tomorrow morning, I'll have Sophia register her name in the new palace maid's roster. Even if she's simple-minded, she must learn proper etiquette, if only to avoid suspicion. You always handle things meticulously, so let's proceed according to your arrangements." Philip Flair said, "For this longevity banquet, His Majesty wishes to sample delicacies from all over. Instruct the Imperial Kitchen to prepare thoroughly and avoid displeasing His Majesty." "All right, I've already given instructions. They are all my capable assistants, so there shouldn't be any mistakes." It's just those newly arrived palace maids, they haven't been properly trained yet, and they might cause some trouble. Although Charlotte Flair is my adopted daughter, you can be strict with her wherever teaching or discipline is needed. Philip Flair said seriously, we all eat the emperor's rice, and if she can't handle things, we will all bear the consequences. Yes, I understand. Emma Watson smiled again, this time back at the palace, you seem different. Could it be because you have a daughter now? Father, you are my father. Mary Lee suddenly exclaimed, then giggled. Listen to that adorable voice. I'm getting old, and my greatest desire is to be a father. Philip Flair said sincerely. Indeed, your regret has finally been fulfilled. Emma Watson looked at his silver-streaked hair, it's time someone called you father. A gentle tenderness resonated in her voice. Philip Flair continued, although we are all servants, there is a hierarchy. Emma, given our many years together in the palace, I'm very reassured and trusting this child's education to you. In a few years, I want her to thrive in the palace like a fish in water. She's a naive young lady. Surely, you don't mind? Emma Watson said pointedly. I rescued her from the water, and she was the first to call me father. For this alone, I, Philip Flair, am willing to protect her. Philip Flair walked to Mary Lee's side and pulled her down to kneel. Charlotte Flair, come here and kowtow to Emma. From now on, the head attendant is your master. Philip Flair, what are you doing? Emma Watson stepped forward, get up quickly. I wouldn't dare to scold or punish your adopted daughter. Mary Lee knelt on the ground, unusually respectful, Master, if father says you are my master, then you are my master. I have a father and a master now. How wonderful. Ho ho ho. Emma Watson was both amused and exasperated, I really don't know if she's truly naive or just pretending. So, you agree? Philip Flair, pleased that his little trick had worked, said, as long as it's for her own good, feel free to scold or punish her. I won't interfere. We all live in the palace, we all know each other. All right, no wonder people say you, Philip Flair, are clever. I've witnessed it firsthand today. Impartial and reasonable. Emma Watson said to him, all right, Charlotte Flair, you may rise. I accept you as my disciple. If I didn't, your father would probably risk his life for you. Mary Lee smiled at her, without any calculation, unclear whether it was genuine or feigned. Philip Flair, now at ease, said, it's getting late. Let her sleep in your room tonight. Tomorrow morning, she'll be under your care. When have I ever disappointed you with my work? Emma Watson glanced at him, all right, you've been out of the palace for several days. You should rest well. Go on. All right, I'll go. Seeing you, my heart, Philip Flair just chuckled, not elaborating, but his eyes revealed a gentle affection. Seeing his expression, Emma Watson understood perfectly, chuckling, trying to sweet-talk me, are you? Old dog, still trying to play the charmer, even though you're a father now. Mother, where are you? Where's my mother? Mary Lee suddenly asked. Emma Watson blushed. Philip Flair laughed heartily as he opened the door and walked out, feeling that his days ahead would become increasingly interesting. ### Chapter 18 Where Can She Belong? Charlotte Flair, you are now my disciple, and you must obey me in all things. Emma Watson closed the door and sat down. Listen carefully. I don't care if you're feigning madness or truly a fool, you must heed your master's words. Seeing her seriousness, Mary Lee timidly said, I'm scared. You're right. To survive in this palace, you must learn fear. The more fearful you are, the more respectful you appear, and the more the masters will favor you. The worst thing is to outshine others. If you dare to be more capable than anyone else, your good days will be over. Mary Lee feigned a look of half-understanding, biting her lip as she stood there pathetically. Charlotte Flair, come sit beside me. Emma Watson patted her bed. You can sleep here tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'll take you to Sophia Bright. She's the chief palace maid. You can learn from her. Mary Lee hesitated for a moment, then sat down, her heart pounding. Master, she said, I'm afraid. Will anyone hit me? Why would anyone hit you for no reason? Emma Watson replied. However, this is the Imperial Palace, a place that changes in the blink of an eye. Anyone can rise to riches one day and lose their life the next. As palace maids, we carry our lives in our hands every day. If the masters are displeased, we can be punished at any moment. Don't think I can protect you, not even your godfather can. Mary Lee said, then I don't want to stay here anymore. I want to leave, I want to go. She appeared somewhat agitated. Don't be hasty. Even 1,000 years of change is but a ripple in the pond. Now that you're here, you must face the trial. Emma Watson said sternly, there are rules outside the palace, and there are rules within. As long as you serve the masters well, cater to their whims, survival is not a problem. And when luck comes, the rewards are not small. What rewards? Can I? No, I'm scared. I want to go back. Emma Watson shook her head slightly and asked, where do you want to go? Do you have a home? Home. Mary Lee began to ponder, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't find a clue, only feeling a splitting headache. Ah, my head hurts so much. I feel unwell, uncomfortable, it hurts. Emma Watson rubbed her head, saying, all right, stop thinking about it. When you remember, you'll remember. You hit your head, but don't tell anyone that. The masters are most about such incidents, they consider them unlucky. Mary Lee looked at her with pleading eyes. Her clear, watery gaze softened Emma Watson's heart. All right, don't look at me like that. You've called me master, and I will take care of you. However, you must be quick-witted. No one can help you but yourself. In the palace, it's best to be wise and protect yourself. If you commit a grave error, even I won't plead for you. Master, you are my master. Mary Lee embraced her. I don't want to die. He. Emma Watson stroked her raven-black hair, everyone wants to live. You have a beautiful face, so it's best to be humble and discreet. Don't let the masters see you and become displeased. She thought for a moment, then added, oh, it's best not to cause any trouble. Yes, I'll listen to master, he. Mary Lee said coquettishly. The next day, Emma Watson led a still sleepy Mary Lee out of the room. As soon as they stepped out the door, Mary Lee was stunned. Whoa! Where is this? It's so grand and magnificent. Emma Watson explained, well, you entered the palace late last night, so it's normal that you couldn't see clearly. This is the imperial palace of the Dongdyun Kingdom, where His Majesty resides. You and I are both palace maids, and it's our duty to serve him. Serve him? Mary Lee giggled. All right, then I'll serve master. He. Emma Watson said, master doesn't need you to serve her. You just need to be obedient and not cause any trouble. As for what else you need to do, I'll tell Sophia, so she can try to teach you. Mary Lee wore a look of half-understanding. Emma Watson knew that saying more would be useless, so she simply said, Charlotte Flair, you don't need to know so much. You just need to remember that in this imperial palace, you must not offend anyone. Your godmother truly loves you, and my master will also love anyone she loves, including their connections. Mary Lee scratched her head and chuckled. Emma Watson, not knowing what to do with her, led her to meet Sophia Bright. Her room was at the other end of Myriad Grace Hall, and it took them a long time to reach the door. Sophia Bright, already dressed and prepared to go out, saw the head attendant arrive and hurriedly bowed. Head attendant, what are your orders? In the palace, rank was everything, and as a chief steward under the head attendant, she could only obey her orders. Emma Watson, holding Mary Lee's hand, said to her, "Sophia, this is the newcomer, Charlotte Flare. Please take care of her for me." Sophia Bright, surprised, asked, "When did this person arrive? Why wasn't I informed?" Emma Watson's expression remained unchanged as she said, "Just accept her as I told you. Don't ask so many questions." Sophia Bright gritted her teeth silently, suppressing her anger, and nodded, "Yes, head attendant. I'll take her." Emma Watson, understanding her feelings, said, "Sophia, you might feel uncomfortable, but this is how the inner palace is. Everyone has to leave each other a way out. It's best to avoid dead-end situations." Sophia Bright, though angry, didn't show it and respectfully replied, "Yes, head attendant. Your teachings are wise." Emma Watson, in front of Mary Lee, continued, "You're always like this, keeping everything bottled up inside. How you want to think is your business, but in short, I've entrusted this person to you. I still have to report to others." She didn't elaborate further. Mary Lee watched them both, remaining silent. Sophia Bright glanced at Mary Lee, then said to Emma Watson, "This servant wouldn't dare. This servant wouldn't dare, this servant wouldn't dare again. I'm tired of hearing that. Sophia, although I'm older than you, in my heart, you're the most capable court lady, and no one can match your abilities. Why do you always hold back with me like this?" Emma Watson said. "Head attendant, this servant still has duties to attend to. Please excuse me." Sophia Bright skillfully deflected her words, "Who exactly is this Charlotte Flare? So I can register her name." "She's my disciple," Emma Watson replied. "Disciple?" Sophia Bright paused, then said, "All right, I'll take good care of her. Then I'll trouble you. I'll be going now." Emma Watson glanced at Mary Lee, "Charlotte Flare, don't feel wronged by anything, just endure it well." Mary Lee watched her master leave reluctantly, then smiled at Sophia Bright, He, who am I? You definitely won't guess." Sophia Bright, amused, said, "Your master is quite something, taking in a fool as a disciple." She sneered, "Well, since you're here, I can't refuse. Follow me, let's find you a place to stay first." She thought to herself, "Silly girl, this is the imperial palace, you're in for a rough time." "Rough time? Is it fun?" Mary Lee said seriously, "Then I like rough times." Sophia Bright covered her mouth, laughing. She thought, "What a fool, you're a fool, but I'm not. Your master brought you here to keep an eye on me." Mary Lee followed her, unaware of what awaited her. In a gloomy room, four new palace maids were chatting when the female official in charge of their training arrived. They all stood up and bowed. "Supervisor Bright, good morning." Sophia Bright's expression changed, losing the respect she showed Emma. She lifted her chin and said, "Yes, this is the new palace maid, Charlotte Flare. She'll be sharing this room with you four from now on." The four maids exchanged glances. Irene spoke first, "Supervisor Bright, it's not that we can't let her stay here. But this room is already cramped, I'm afraid it won't fit her. You want your own room?" "Sure, who doesn't want to climb higher? Wait until you're the chief maid before you talk." Sophia Bright glared at her, "You're just new palace maids, the lowest of the low in this palace. You have no right to bargain. Chief maid sounds great. I want to be the chief maid. I am the chief maid." Mary Lee, unconcerned with their opinions, walked straight to a bed, rolled around, and lay down. He, so comfy, this is nice." The four new palace maids were startled. Grace Miller looked at Mary and said, "Supervisor, it turns out she's a fool." She suddenly felt a pang of sympathy. Being a palace maid was hard enough, being a foolish one, who knows how she'll die. "Shut up. Don't call her a fool unless you don't want to live anymore." Sophia Bright said, "Just remember, she has backing." Give her some leeway, find her easy tasks, teach her what she doesn't understand, and report back to me. Yes, Supervisor Bright. The four remained silent. I have other matters to attend to. Hurry up, the Emperor's birthday feast is approaching. No one is allowed to be lazy or make mistakes, or don't blame the palace rules for being merciless. Sophia Bright finished speaking and left the stuffy room. In truth, she did this on purpose. There were plenty of empty rooms if she wanted to take care of this silly girl, but she didn't want to make things too easy for her. Inside the room, the four maids surrounded the bed, staring at the crazy girl lying on it. Hey, Charlotte Flair, where did you crawl out from? Irene looked at her. Are you stupid? Why come back to be a palace maid? She clicked her tongue twice. Do you have some kind of backing or something? Mary Lee rolled over, sat up in bed, and unexpectedly bowed to the four of them. Please take care of me. Humph. Telling us to take care of you, who's going to take care of us? Isn't this just asking for trouble? Irene pouted. I don't want to be punished and beaten because of you. Is it fun to be beaten? Mary Lee asked with a naive smile. Humph, too lazy to care about you. Irene glared. Irene, stop it, don't be so hard on her. She's a foolish girl, and also pitiful. Grace Miller said to Irene, we are all sisters, we should help each other. Hashtag chapter 19. Is this really her? Margaret then said, all right, Irene, say less. Look at her, none of us are as fortunate as her. If she weren't foolish, would we ever have a chance to rise? Irene rolled her eyes and said, Margaret, are you saying that there's a rule in the palace that if the emperor or a prince takes a liking to a palace maid, they can take her as a concubine? That's right, that's exactly it. Margaret nodded. I had an older cousin who entered the palace a few years ago and was taken as a concubine by the emperor. But her fate was ill-fated, she died of a sudden illness within a year. Maggie asked fearfully, sudden illness? Really? Was she harmed by another master? She rubbed her arm and said, forget it, I'll just be content as a palace maid. Oh dear, let's hurry up and get out, or we'll be punished if we're late. She urged them. Grace Miller, feeling sympathetic, said, if we all leave, what will happen to her? Irene glared at Mary Lee, you want to help her so much? Then stay and guide her. She'll only mess things up. Kind-hearted Grace Miller took Mary Lee's hand, come on, Charlotte Flair, from now on, just follow me and do what I do. Remember, if you shouldn't speak, absolutely don't speak, just keep your head down and work. She pulled her off the bed, I'll help you prepare a place to sleep tonight, don't worry. Mary Lee smiled at her and asked, who are you, elder sister? Grace Miller smiled and said, my name is Grace Miller. She didn't forget to explain, we all had our own names before entering the palace, but once we're in, they're all changed. However, our surnames remain the same, my surname is Miller. Elder sister Grace Miller, you're so kind. Mary Lee said, I'll remember that. Do you really remember? Irene turned back and said, I'm Irene Carter, we're leaving now. She's Margaret Quinn, and this one is Maggie Bennett. Irene introduced, the four of us share a room, with you, it's 5 now. Seeing the other girl's bewildered expression, she added, it's okay, you'll remember eventually. Mary Lee counted on her fingers, okay, I'll remember slowly, it's so hard. Grace Miller looked at her and suddenly exclaimed, ah, what are you wearing? It's too late to get new clothes, quick, wear mine. Let's go, Maggie said to Grace Miller. We'll be scolded by the matron if we're late. Grace Miller was resolute, yes, you go ahead, Charlotte Flair and I will be right there. She urged Mary Lee, Charlotte Flair, hurry up, we're going to be late. Oh. Mary Lee stood still, not moving. Grace Miller quickly found her palace-maid uniform and changed Mary Lee into it. She looked her over twice and said, luckily, it fits more or less. We have similar figures, so this will do for now. If our uniforms aren't proper, we'll be scolded. There are many rules in the palace, just do what I do. Remember, you must bow when you see a master. Master? Who is master? Mary Lee wondered. Oh, there's no time to explain, come with me. Grace Miller grabbed her hand and hurried outside. Almost all the palace maids had left Myriad Grace Hall, leaving only the two of them rushing along. Only Grace Miller seemed truly worried. Mary Lee, completely clueless about what was happening, looked at the magnificent buildings outside and exclaimed, "Wow, so big. Where is this?" "You'll find out later. Just follow me now. If we're late, we'll really get scolded." Mary Lee seemed not to hear. She saw a brightly colored butterfly fluttering nearby and ran towards it. Hee, butterfly. It's a butterfly, right? The butterfly's flying so high. Her hands waved in the air, trying to chase the butterfly down. "Charlotte Flair, are you tired of living? Come back here. Come back here." Grace Miller called as she walked. Seeing that she had no intention of turning back, she ran over, grabbed her hand, and said, "Oh my, stop looking. The sword is almost at our necks, and you still have the mind to admire butterflies." "No, I want the butterfly. I want the butterfly. Oh, it's flown away, flown away." Mary Lee giggled, unconcerned with Grace Miller's thoughts. Grace Miller could only keep pulling her hand, saying, "Let's go, we'll be scolded. We'll be punished if we're late." "I'm not going. I'm not going anywhere." Mary Lee glared at the butterfly petulantly. She saw some small pebbles on the ground, picked them up, and threw them at the butterfly, saying, "Butterfly, don't run. I'll knock you down." She threw several times, but the butterfly continued to flit about. Ouch! Who is that? Who's throwing rocks without looking? Are you allowed to just throw stones around? David Duke, carrying a tray of tea, appeared before them. Grace Miller immediately panicked, stepped forward, grabbed Mary Lee, and pulled her down to kneel. "Apologies. Apologies. We beg your forgiveness for the offense." Having only recently entered the palace, she didn't know who this person was. Although he wore the clothes of a eunuch, it was best not to offend him. "Who are you? Which palace are you from?" David Duke set the tea tray aside and stepped forward, wanting to reason with her. Mary Lee looked up at him. Seeing her, David Duke gasped, rubbed his eyes in disbelief, and muttered, "I've seen a ghost. How can there be two people so alike?" Grace Miller, in her panic, hadn't heard him clearly. Bowing her head, she replied, "This servant is Grace Miller, a palace maid who recently entered the palace. She is Charlotte Flair, who just arrived. We have caused offense, we beg your forgiveness, eunuch." "Eunuch? Who's a eunuch?" "Listen carefully. I am David Duke, personal attendant to Prince Thomas. To be disrespectful to me is to be disrespectful to master. Do you want a beating?" David Duke didn't really want to make things difficult for her, he was just teasing. "If you know what's good for you, call me David Duke." He preferred being called David Duke to eunuch. "I apologize. I apologize on behalf of Charlotte Flair," Grace Miller said formally. "She's Charlotte Flair?" David Duke mused. "She's clearly Mary Lee." She is Charlotte Flair." The head attendant said she was newly arrived, Grace Miller said. Mary Lee, still looking around, said to David Duke, "Hey, you catch that butterfly for me." "What's wrong with her?" David Duke asked. "Well." Grace Miller hesitated, remembering Steward Bright's instructions, and said, "See for yourself." David Duke stepped forward and asked her, "Hey, are you really Charlotte Flair?" "Who am I?" "I'm Charlotte Flair, that's what my godfather said." Mary Lee told him, if not, who am I? Who am I really? Heavens, is she daft? The more David Duke thought about it, the stranger it seemed. All right, off you go, back to your duties. Yes, sir. Grace Miller stood up and said to Mary Lee, Charlotte Flair, let's go. A scolding was inevitable. He. Mary Lee finally left the butterfly and followed Grace Miller. David Duke watched them go, lost in thought. After a long while, he picked up the tea tray and headed towards the Two-Vow Pavilion. Henry Cavill was practicing his swordsmanship in the back garden of the Two-Vow Pavilion. Alone, his technique was exquisite, reaching a state of transcendent immersion. Suddenly, a crash echoed as a rockery split apart, his sword embedded deep within the stone. Excellent, master. Your swordsmanship is truly remarkable. David Duke finally reached him. You should be more discreet, though. What if someone were to see? Do you truly take me for a fool? Henry Cavill said. I mastered the art of deceptive maneuvers long ago. He accepted the teacup David Duke offered, took a sip, and said, Tell me, what's new in the palace? David Duke swallowed, then said, A new batch of palace maids arrived after our return. David Duke, I asked for something new, is this considered news? With father's temperament, it's a blessing he doesn't replace them monthly. Henry Cavill muttered, then sat down in the pavilion. David Duke followed, saying, There is something rather peculiar I believe you should know. Henry Cavill looked up at him, curiosity evident on his handsome face. Speak. I believe I've seen Mary Lee. Who? Henry Cavill deliberately asked again. The daughter of the Marquis of the Western Shu Kingdom, Mary Lee. She appears to be in our palace. David Duke stated. And she seems to have become simple. Are you certain it's her? Henry Cavill considered other possibilities. Perhaps it's just someone who resembles her. I can't be certain. Perhaps, master, you should see for yourself. David Duke suggested. If it isn't her, then all is well. But if it is, there's something mysterious afoot. If it truly is her, why would she have become simple? Henry Cavill quickly thought of several possibilities. Could the Western Shu Kingdom have sent her as a spy? David Duke considered this. That's a possibility. Given her current position as a palace maid, it would be best if you investigated personally. At the mention of Mary Lee, a sudden joy stirred within Henry Cavill. He didn't delve into the reason, only wanting to confirm whether the Mary Lee David Duke spoke of was the same one he had met. Outside the imperial kitchen, Grace Miller and Mary Lee knelt, enduring the interrogation of Regina Hope, the head steward. Explain yourselves. Why are you late? The palace rules have been repeatedly emphasized, forbidding tardiness. Why did you deliberately disobey? Regina's face was etched with displeasure, her hand itching to strike. Grace Miller trembled, saying only, it was this servant's fault. I begged the head servant for punishment. Regina looked down at the top of her head, this isn't a marketplace where sweet talk gets you off the hook. This is the imperial palace. You can't just wander wherever you please. Understand? Yes, this servant understands. Grace Miller didn't dare raise her head, insisting, please, head servant, punish only me. Charlotte Flair is new, she doesn't know anything. Charlotte Flair. Who is she? Regina looked at Mary Lee, no wonder she looks unfamiliar. So, she's a sudden arrival. Lifting Mary Lee's chin, a flicker of surprise crossed her face. This face bore a resemblance to Lady Clark's, but it was even more youthful and captivating. Hashtag Chapter 20, Trouble Brews. Mary Lee smiled at her, blurting out, Sister. Who's your sister? Regina Hope flung her hand away, stepping back. There are only ranks here. Only masters speak. What are you? Irene, honey-tongued, approached, head servant, please calm yourself. It's not worth your anger over a mere servant girl. Come, have some water to soothe your throat. Regina accepted the teacup Irene offered, taking 2 slow sips. Listen closely, all of you. Grace Miller and this Charlotte Flair will receive no midday meal. After 10 slaps each, they'll shell beans. No one interferes. Anyone who dares help them gets 20 more slaps. Yes. The surrounding palace maids responded in unison, watching from a distance. Maggie cursed under her breath, a true jinx. Trouble the moment she arrives. Margaret, standing beside Maggie, agreed, indeed. With such a bewitching face, she's surely trying to seduce the master. She clearly resented the newcomer's beauty. Maggie whispered, "Oh my, are you jealous because she's prettier than you, hee hee?" "What do you mean? Do you think you're prettier than her?" Margaret retorted. "Humph, I doubt it. We're all the same, let's not kid ourselves." Seeing everyone occupied, Regina said, "Irene, you handle the slapping. My hand is tired." She stepped aside. "Hit them hard so they remember." Irene, her face obsequious, replied, "Yes, ma'am. I certainly won't go easy." She approached Grace Miller. "You go first." "Irene, you're really going to hit me?" Grace Miller's face fell. "Go easy, okay?" Irene feigned difficulty. "Grace Miller, though we share a room, the head servant has given the order. I have no choice. Just 10 slaps, it'll be over quickly. Bear with it." "Well, get on with it." Regina snapped. "Yes." Irene replied, landing a slap on Grace Miller's face with surprising force. "Ah!" Grace Miller cried out, tears streaming down her face. Mary Lee, unable to remain kneeling and unwilling to endure further abuse, suddenly stood up, shoving Irene hard. "You're a bad person. You're a bad person." Hitting Sister Grace Miller. Caught off guard, Irene fell to the ground, her backside stinging. "Head servant Hope, she pushed me." Regina, clearly seeing this, stepped forward and attempted to grab Mary's arm. "This newcomer is incredibly insolent. Someone, seize her." "No, I don't want to." Mary Lee, quite nimble, sensed the unfavorable situation and bolted. Several court ladies, hearing the commotion, surrounded Mary Lee and combined their efforts to apprehend her. Mary Lee ran like the wind, shouting as she fled, "You're all bad people. I don't want to stay here. You're all bad, and bad people should be beaten." Regina suddenly understood, "Oh dear, this isn't someone easily dealt with. Who brought this person here?" Irene, rising from the ground and brushing off the dust, replied, "Steward Bright brought her, saying she has someone backing her." Regina's anger flared. Having backing doesn't give her the right to act so recklessly. Does she truly think she's the Empress? She addressed the others, quickly, "Seize her. We can't let her cause chaos everywhere." Everyone recognized the gravity of the situation, growing increasingly worried about Mary Lee's trajectory. Mary Lee circled the imperial kitchen, evading capture. Running for so long, she felt her stomach rumble. Catching a delicious scent, she darted straight inside. Within the imperial kitchen, everything was bustling and orderly. However, Mary Lee's arrival shattered the tranquil atmosphere. Like a drop of water in hot oil, everything erupted into chaos. Nathan Bell, the head steward of the imperial kitchen, was directing the court ladies and eunuchs in serving dishes. Seeing the disruption, he roared, "Who is that? Get out! Get out!" Mary Lee paid him no mind. Spotting the enticing, fragrant dishes on the table, she reached out, saying, "I'm hungry," as her saliva dripped onto the food. Nathan Bell was horrified. "Someone, come quickly. Is she mad? Has she lost her mind?" Regina, now panicked, rushed in. I beg your forgiveness, head steward. I will discipline this ignorant girl, but we simply can't catch her. Insolent. The imperial kitchen is not a place for your unruly behavior. Nathan Bell's face darkened. Offending me is one thing, but offending the master, our heads will roll. Quickly, get her out of here. Whatever grievances you have, settle them outside. Charlotte Flair, stop this foolishness. Grace Miller, disregarding her own face, prioritized her life. She ran to Mary Lee, pleading, for my sake, please stop. This food is not for us. 10 heads wouldn't be enough to pay for this. But I'm hungry, Mary Lee insisted. I haven't eaten anything. My stomach is empty. As if on cue, her stomach growled loudly. Nathan Bell, furious, demanded, what is the meaning of this? Did she not receive her meal this morning? He glared at Regina Hope. How do you manage the court ladies? The Emperor's birthday feast is approaching. If anything goes wrong, can you bear the consequences? Regina bowed her head in apology. My apologies, head steward. It's my fault for not disciplining them properly. I'll have them removed immediately. She glared at Grace Miller. What are you standing there for? Get her out. Grace Miller's pleas fell on deaf ears. Finally, Regina declared, since you won't listen, then you won't live to see another day. Guards, take her away. All right, summon the guards. Nathan Bell said. Regina personally went to call 2 guards, guard brothers, it's this woman, she truly doesn't understand the rules, please escort her out. Just as the guards were about to act, Mary Lee was quicker, attempting to slip out the door. Regina blocked her way, but she was surprisingly strong, struggling fiercely, and even slapped Regina, I want revenge. Chaos. Seize her, all of you. If we're late for the master's meal, none of us will escape punishment. Nathan Bell shouted, his voice full of agitation. And so, a group of people rushed forward to capture one unarmed, seemingly foolish person. Mary Lee, running with all her might, suddenly collided with someone, practically falling into their arms. Seeing this, everyone fearfully knelt, Your Highness, Prince Thomas. Henry Cavill feigned innocence, pushing Mary Lee away, and asked with a silly grin, who are you? You stepped on my foot. Mary Lee rubbed her head, retorting, I'm the one who's hurt. Are you made of bone? Henry Cavill looked at her closely, comparing her to the Mary Lee in his memory. She looked exactly the same, but why was she acting so foolish? And saying such ludicrous things? Could it be, like him, she was merely pretending? Nathan Bell bowed respectfully, saying, Prince Thomas graces the imperial kitchen with his presence. Please forgive this servant's disrespect. Henry Cavill joked, well then, you can go ahead and chop off your head. He glanced at Mary Lee, asking her, what's wrong with her? Why are you all swarming her? Forgive Prince Thomas, this girl is new to the palace and unfamiliar with the customs. Seeing Mary Lee about to bolt, Henry Cavill reached out and embraced her, teasing, oh, I've caught you. You won't escape me. Regina bowed, saying, Prince Thomas, she is but a lowly palace maid. How could she defile your noble person? Allow this servant to attend to you. Very well. Henry Cavill released the fragrant Mary Lee, saying, I'm hungry. Does anyone have food? I want to eat my fill and then sleep. Nathan Bell laughed heartily, so Prince Thomas is only here for food. Please, come in, there are many delicacies inside. He rejoiced inwardly, thankful that it was the foolish prince who arrived at this hour. If it were the crown prince or someone else, they would all be doomed. Henry Cavill rubbed his belly, saying, dining alone is so dull. I want someone to dine with me. Regina spoke again, Prince Thomas, I fear that is not appropriate. Everyone in the palace knew that Prince Thomas, ever since he fell gravely ill and became simple-minded years ago, had been like this. He treated palace maids and eunuchs less harshly than others, which emboldened her slightly. Feigning anger, Henry Cavill asked, "Regina Hope, then I ask you, who am I?" Regina quickly replied, "You are Prince Thomas of the Eastern Yang Kingdom, son of noble consort Shu." Henry Cavill put on a smug expression, saying, "Good that you know. You must obey my words." Let me touch someone. Whoever I touch can dine with me." Strangely enough, some palace maids seemed tempted but dared not speak up openly. Seeing that he was no longer needed, Nathan Bell made an excuse to slip away quietly. "Prince Thomas, your breakfast has been prepared. Allow me to fetch it." "No need, I'll go in and eat myself." Henry Cavill pointed at Mary Lee, "I just touched her, so let her dine with me." "Prince Thomas, she's new and doesn't understand the rules, she might offend you. You should choose someone else." Regina said, "Lady-in-waiting Irene is clever and sensible, why not let her serve you, master?" Irene, as if granted a great favor, echoed the steward's words, "Yes, yes, Prince Thomas. She doesn't understand anything, it's best if I serve you." "I will certainly serve you well, your highness." Henry Cavill glared, "How dare you? I ought to chop off all your heads." Then he laughed heartily, "Are you scared? Don't worry, I'll let it slide this time. I'm starving, let's go. This girl will dine with me now, and no one shall stop us." Regina wanted to say something more, but a glance from Prince Thomas silenced her. Irene seethed with anger. Such a good opportunity, snatched away by the newcomer Charlotte Flair. What a stroke of luck for her. "All of you, leave. I want to eat. Do you all want to watch?" Henry Cavill suddenly grabbed Mary Lee's hand, "You, come with me." Chapter 21, Two Fools, Who are you? Mary Lee let him lead her by the hand without resistance. "I'm hungry too, let's eat together." "All right." Henry Cavill smiled at her, and they entered the imperial kitchen together. Nathan Bell didn't dare delay, and specifically instructed the kitchen to prepare a private room for Prince Thomas. He led them into the room, where a sumptuous breakfast was laid out. Then he said, "Please enjoy your meal, Prince Thomas. If this girl isn't to your liking, I can find you a more suitable companion." Go away. Henry Cavill seemed impatient, "If you keep babbling, you'll lose your head. Get out, I don't need you to spoon-feed me." "Yes, I'll take my leave." Nathan Bell glanced at Mary Lee, "Be careful, don't displease Prince Thomas." Mary Lee ignored him, staring at the delicious food on the table, practically drooling. "Wow, it smells so good, so delicious." Henry Cavill watched Nathan Bell leave and casually closed the door, finally calming down a bit. "Now, what's your name?" Mary Lee had already started grabbing food, her mouth stuffed with rice, only able to make muffled sounds. Henry Cavill wasn't in a hurry, he found a seat and watched her leisurely. "Eat, preferably until you burst." Mary Lee ate and laughed, trying to speak but unable to, gesturing with her hands, indicating that everything was delicious. Henry Cavill scrutinized her expression. "Don't you recognize me? You should know my infamous reputation. Or, are you really not her?" Mary Lee swallowed with difficulty. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." Henry Cavill, wanting to probe her, leaned closer and immediately caught a whiff of her girlish scent. "Aren't you afraid of me? I could overpower you." "Who are you? You're talking strangely." I'm still not full." Mary Lee attacked the food again, as if she hadn't eaten in ages. Henry Cavill remained suspicious. "Fine, don't tell me. I'll find out sooner or later. Just so you know, whatever your purpose is, I won't let you succeed. Aren't you eating? I'm going to finish it all now." Mary Lee giggled, saying, "Who are you? Why are you dressed differently from them?" Henry Cavill said, "Are you playing dumb?" He looked into her eyes, deep as water and veiled in a hazy mist. making him unable to understand. Playing dumb? What's playing dumb? Can you eat it? Mary Lee looked bewildered. That's a strange name. Henry Cavill shook his head, deciding to temporarily give up questioning her, and ate casually. The atmosphere was strange, one person a prince feigning ignorance, the other a palace maid who seemed genuinely foolish, two fools unexpectedly getting along and enjoying their meal. He couldn't help but shake his head and chuckle softly. Mary Lee burped, saying, I'm full, so comfortable. Henry Cavill, half full, said, I'm quite free, come stroll with me in the palace today. He thought of using a roundabout tactic. Go where? I have to go back to Sister Grace Miller. Mary Lee suddenly became serious, we still have a lot to do, we'll be beaten. Two choices, be punished, or stroll with me through the imperial palace, think carefully. Henry Cavill looked at her, if you want to play any tricks, aim them at me, don't trouble anyone else in this palace. In truth, Henry Cavill was also thinking for her sake, rather let her harm him than harm others. He knew her tricks, couldn't deny it, she was a clever, cunning woman. Mary Lee frowned, saying, all right, I want to do something. Henry Cavill, seeing her innocent smile, asked, all right, what? Do you want to do? He was curious, what could a fool, or someone pretending to be a fool, do? Give me your hand, he. Mary Lee laughed without any apparent malice. Henry Cavill didn't think much of it, and extended his hand, to see what she wanted to do. Without a word, Mary Lee grabbed his hand and bit it hard, finally saying, this is my choice. She looked at him, laughing, seemingly mockingly. Ow! This woman! Henry Cavill cried out in pain, someone, come quickly. Nathan Bell, who hadn't gone far, hearing the call, opened the door and entered, cautiously asking, Prince Thomas, isn't this girl going too far? This palace maid is truly unruly, I invited her to admire the flowers in the imperial garden, she flatly refused, and even bit me. Henry Cavill put on a wronged expression, everyone bullies me, no, I must punish you severely. Nathan Bell knelt down with a thud, saying, Prince Thomas, spare my life. This palace maid is under the head manager's purview, this humble servant has no authority over her. Please, Prince Thomas, show mercy and spare the entire imperial kitchen. Regina wasn't a fool, upon entering, she heard Nathan Bell's words and immediately knelt, saying, Prince Thomas, please forgive me, the new palace maid is ignorant and has offended you, please be magnanimous and don't hold it against this servant, I will discipline her severely later. Henry Cavill wailed loudly, you are all too much. Look at my hand. He raised his arm, 2 rows of teeth marks clearly visible, oh dear, it hurts, it's killing me. He nearly burst into tears. Regina thought for a moment, to protect her position, she could only offer up the newcomer, if Prince Thomas is angry, please vent your anger on her. Whether beating or scolding, it's your decision. Jade is not polished without tools, man is not taught without reprimand. To prevent the matter from escalating, Nathan Bell added, indeed, Prince Thomas, this palace maid is new and quite disobedient. It would be best to entrust her to Emma for strict discipline, sparing you the trouble. Please reconsider, master. Henry Cavill said innocently, is that so? All right, then I'll play with her. You all may leave. Nathan Bell and Regina exchanged glances, surprised that the brewing storm had subsided so quickly. A fool indeed, 2 fools together make for a peaceful world. Nathan Bell winked at Regina again. Regina, understanding his meaning with annoyance, looked at Mary Lee and said, Prince Thomas, since she has made a mistake, she will certainly obey you. Charlotte Flair, you should thank Prince Thomas for David Duke's great kindness. Mary Lee asked with an innocent expression, who is Prince Thomas? Henry Cavill rubbed his forehead and said, you fool, I told you, I am Prince Thomas. You have no memory, you deserve to be scolded. Come. Go out with me for a stroll. He nudged her with his foot. Are you going or not? If not, I'll carry you. Carry me, I want to be carried. Mary Lee was not at all intimidated by Prince Thomas's authority, on the contrary, she found it quite amusing. Nathan Bell shook his head inwardly. Faced with two fools, what more could he say? Regina wanted to laugh but didn't dare. She could only say, yes, as Prince Thomas commands. Henry Cavill said smugly to Mary Lee, did you hear that? I'm the biggest here. Nathan Bell had intended to speak, but on second thought, he remained silent. Only after the foolish master had dragged the foolish palace maid away did he breathe a sigh of relief. Nathan Bell, what did you mean by that? Regina stood up angrily. So you're the head of the imperial kitchen, so what? You think you can disregard our palace maids, don't you? I, Regina Hope, am not someone to be trifled with. Nathan Bell said, oh my, look at you. Wasn't I doing it for everyone's sake? He chuckled and added, luckily, this master is a fool. If it were the crown prince or someone else, you and I would have been beaten today. Regina realized he was right and couldn't argue further. As she walked out, she said, you should still manage your people well. If the food is late, my people will report the truth. Don't say I didn't warn you. As she spoke, the head maid, Emma Watson, suddenly arrived and asked upon entering, what's going on? Why is Charlotte Flair with Prince Thomas? Regina, feeling indignant, lowered her head and said, head maid, you've arrived just in time. Please judge this matter. This palace maid is already mentally challenged, yet head manager Bell accuses us, the palace maids, of gossiping. Shoo! Have you forgotten the palace rules? Don't speak so carelessly. Emma Watson said, I was just worried about her, so I wanted to check on her beforehand. As expected, something still happened. Oh dear, Regina, you're usually sensible, why are you acting so rashly now? Yes, head maid, your instruction is correct. Regina looked up and asked, so what should we do now? What to do? I'm going to make dumplings. Nathan Bell shook his head and left. The matters of the imperial kitchen, big and small, required his attention, he didn't have time to deal with a foolish palace maid. Emma Watson signaled with her eyes, and Regina followed her out of the imperial kitchen. The two went to a secluded corner. Commander, what are your orders? Regina inquired. Keep a close watch on this Charlotte Flair, don't let her cause any more trouble, Emma Watson stated. I only accepted her to save face, so don't be negligent. Though she's foolish, there's no guarantee she won't wise up one day, so we must leave ourselves an out. Regina, ever cautious, asked, may I know where she hails from? Don't ask too many questions, just keep your mouth shut, Emma Watson said, unwilling to elaborate. I must hurry and deliver these offerings to the Empress. You should go and keep watch. Yes, Commander, Regina Hope replied. Henry Cavill strolled along the path, hand in hand with Mary Lee. Occasionally, palace maids and eunuchs would kneel in greeting, but he seemed oblivious. Mary Lee, however, found this strange and asked with a smile, why do they kneel before you? Because I'm older than you. Henry Cavill retorted. His madness was well known, sometimes mild, sometimes severe. In his severe episodes, he would blurt out insults and even resort to violence. Mary Lee seemed to understand, replying frankly, I don't know how old I am. Are you already 100 years old? You're asking knowingly, aren't you? Henry Cavill gazed into her eyes, their clarity returning like a crystal-clear stream, captivating him. His heart softened, and old memories resurfaced. Mary Lee walked cheerfully, completely oblivious to his status. What's a Ming Tri Co Van? She blinked, her innocence disarming. Are you truly you? Henry Cavill couldn't help but wonder. The Mary Lee he knew was competitive and sharp-witted, but the woman before him was nothing but foolish. If this was an act, she was even more cunning than he was. Mary Lee stretched out her arms and looked up, exclaiming, "This place is so vast." "This is the Imperial Palace, of course it's vast," Henry Cavill replied, noticing the Imperial Garden nearby. "Come, let's go there for a while." Chapter 22 Should he protect her? Hearing the sound of water, Mary Lee's expression clouded over. "No, I don't want to go," she pouted. Henry Cavill was puzzled. "Why not?" "The flowers are in full bloom, it's perfect weather for enjoying them." "I'm afraid of water," Mary Lee shrank back, her face a mask of reluctance. Afraid of water? Mary Lee, who feared nothing, was now afraid of water. As Henry Cavill pondered this, Mary Lee suddenly plopped down on the ground, whining, "I'm tired, I don't want to walk anymore." Looking down, Henry Cavill noticed the slight opening of her collar, revealing the swell of her breasts beneath the palace maid's attire. The ordinary clothes, on her, exuded an unusual charm. At the same time, his eyes caught something hanging around her neck. Mary Lee swung her legs, declaring, "Oh dear, I really can't walk anymore. I want you to carry me." Henry Cavill crouched before her. "Carrying you isn't out of the question," he said, "but you must show me what you're wearing." "Wearing what?" Mary Lee touched her head. "What am I wearing?" Without further ado, Henry Cavill reached out and retrieved the object. "The dragon and phoenix jade pendant bringing auspicious willow," he exclaimed, nearly shouting. The jade pendant was deeply etched in his memory. He muttered involuntarily, "You truly are Mary Lee." Mary Lee giggled, saying, "I want you to carry me on your back." "Carry me." Henry Cavill had intended to indulge her, but considering the consequences and noticing court ladies approaching, he abruptly sat down too, declaring loudly, "No, I want you to carry me. If you don't, I'll tickle you." Mary Lee stopped her coaxing and asked, "Prince Thomas, right? What's tickle? Is it fun?" "Fun, very fun." Henry Cavill pounced, suddenly pushing her to the ground and tickling her all over, showing no restraint despite the presence of others. "Ah! Itchy, ah, ha ha ha, he he he. Itchy, so itchy." Mary Lee's laughter shook her whole body as she rolled on the ground. Overwhelmed by the tickling, she pushed Henry Cavill away. "Get off. I don't want you to tickle me anymore." Henry Cavill, knocked to the ground, cried out in front of the passing court ladies, "This woman is so disrespectful. I am Prince Thomas of the Eastern Yang Kingdom, your master. Do you not value your life?" The court ladies, having curtsied, quickly continued on their way, soon beginning to whisper amongst themselves. Henry Cavill, noticing this, knew someone would report the incident. Mary Lee suddenly straddled Henry Cavill, patting her own bottom and shouting, "Giddy up! Giddy up! I'm riding a horse. Hey! You!" Taken aback by her actions, a flustered Henry Cavill tried to push her off. "Get off me! Giddy up! I'm riding my horse." Henry Cavill was about to speak when Grace Miller rushed over, horrified. She quickly pulled Mary Lee down and knelt, kowtowing. "Prince Thomas, forgive us. Please forgive us." Her face was pale, as if she envisioned herself bloodied and fallen. Unaware of the gravity of the situation, Mary Lee said to Grace Miller, "Grace Miller, do you want to ride the horse? It's fun." She pointed at Henry Cavill. "Prince Thomas is the horse." Grace Miller, terrified by Mary Lee's words, felt her blood run cold. She continued kowtowing. "Prince Thomas, grant us mercy. Charlotte Flair is new and doesn't understand. I am willing to accept the punishment in her place." Henry Cavill, looking at the two women, one worried, the other excited, grinned mischievously. He, riding a horse is fun. Do you want to try?" "Huh." Grace Miller was taken aback. "But, Prince Thomas, you are a prince, not a horse." She felt a wave of relief. It seemed Charlotte Flair would be spared this time. Henry Cavill continued, who says? If I say I'm a horse, then I'm a horse. She rode the horse. Shoo, don't tell anyone. He winked at her. Grace Miller nodded rapidly. Yes, I won't tell. I won't tell anyone. She stood up and took Mary Lee's hand. Charlotte Flair, come on. We should go shell beans now. Go on, go on. I'm tired. I need to go back to my chambers and rest. Henry Cavill waved them away. We'll take our leave. Grace Miller, finally breathing a sigh of relief, pulled Mary Lee away. Henry Cavill sat on the ground, lost in thought. Oh, little brother, enjoying the fresh air. Sebastian Stan, hands clasped behind his back, appeared before him. You have no shame, disgracing our royal family. Henry Cavill looked up at him. Second brother, are you scolding me? He feigned a whimper. Sebastian Stan chuckled inwardly. No, second brother is praising you.